I had my name
Sonita.
there. I don't know if
Yeah,
anybody
the
was
PDF is
before me.
already shared on the group. Whoever wants to open it separately, they can. And yeah, we are done. Yeah. Sunita, you can start.
Shilpa is not doing first. So Shilpa, you have to take it.
Right. I don't know who was before
Okay,
me.
okay. Sorry, I missed it. I thought Sunita has a first name. Yeah, you go. You can go by the order of the names. Yeah, please do. Please start.
Okay, so where do we want to start from?
You can start from the screen. It's basically we're just starting the book
Okay,
name and all.
so Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth, Awakening to Your Life's Purpose.
Can we do? We want to just read the contents once?
Okay, so the contents is the chapter one is the flowering of human consciousness. So there are six lessons in it. Then we have chapter two, ego, the current state of humanity. We have 19 lessons in it. Then chapter three, the core of ego. We have, I don't know what the 39 is, okay. Then we have chapter four, role playing, the many faces of the ego. Then chapter five, the pain body. And then chapter six, breaking free. Chapter seven is finding who you truly are. Chapter eight is the discovery of inner space. And then we have chapter nine, which is awakening. And chapter 10 is a new earth. So we start from chapter one, the flowering of human consciousness. Evocation, Earth, 114 million years ago. One morning, just after sunrise, the first flower ever to appear on the planet opens up to receive the rays of the sun. Prior to this momentous event that heralds an evolutionary transformation in the life of plants, the planet had already been covered in vegetation for millions of years. The first flower probably did not survive for long, and flowers must have remained rare and isolated phenomena, since conditions were most likely not yet favorable for a widespread flowering to occur. One day, however, a critical threshold was reached, and suddenly there would have been an explosion of color and scent all over the planet. If a perceiving consciousness had been there to witness it. Much later, those delicate and fragrant beings we call flowers would come to play an essential part in the evolution of consciousness of another species. Humans would increasingly be drawn to and fascinated by them. As the consciousness of human beings developed, flowers were most likely the first thing they came to value that had no utilitarian purpose for them. That is to say, was not linked in some way to survival. They provided inspiration to countless artists, poets, and mystics. Jesus tells us to contemplate the flowers and learn from them how to live. The Buddha is said to have given a silent sermon once during which he held up a flower and gazed at it. After a while, one of those present, a monk called Mahakasyapa, began to smile. He is said to have been the only one who had understood the sermon. According to legend, that smile, that is to say, realization, was handed down by 28 successive masters and much later became the origin of Zen. Seeing beauty in a flower could awaken humans, however briefly, to the beauty that is an essential part of their own innermost being. their true nature. The first recognition of beauty was one of the most significant events in the evolution of human consciousness. The feelings of joy and love are intrinsically connected to that recognition. Without our fully realizing it, flowers would become for us an expression and form of that which is most high, most sacred, and ultimately formless within ourselves. Flowers, more fleeting, more ethereal, and more delicate than the plants out of which they emerged, would become like messengers from another realm, like a bridge between the world of physical forms and the formless. They not only had a scent that was delicate and pleasing to humans, but also brought a fragrance from the realm of spirit. Using the word enlightenment in a wider sense than the conventionally accepted one, we could look upon flowers as the enlightenment of plants. Any life form in any realm, mineral, vegetable, animal, or human, can be said to undergo enlightenment. It is, however, an extremely rare occurrence since it is more than an evolutionary progression. It also implies a discontinuity in its development, a leap to an entirely different level of being, and most important, a lessening of materiality. What could be heavier and more impenetrable than a rock, the densest of all forms? And yet some rocks undergo a change in their molecular structure, turn into crystals, and so become transparent to the light. Some carbons under inconceivable heat and pressure turn into diamonds, and some heavy minerals into other precious stones. Most crawling reptilians, the most earthbound of all creatures, have remained unchanged for millions of years. Some, however, grew feathers and wings, turned into birds, thus defying the force of gravity that had held them for so long. They didn't become better at crawling or walking, but transcended crawling and walking entirely. Since time immemorial, flowers, crystals, precious stones, and birds have held special significance for the human spirit. Like all life forms, they are, of course, temporary manifestations of the underlying one life, one consciousness. Their special significance and the reason why humans feel such a fascination for and affinity with them can be attributed to their ethereal quality. Once there is a certain degree of presence, of still and alert attention in human beings' perception, they can sense the divine life essence, the one indwelling consciousness or spirit in every creature, every life form, recognize it as one with their own essence and so love it as themselves. Until this happens, however, most humans see only the outer forms, unaware of the inner essence, just as they are unaware of their own essence and identify only with their own physical and psychological form. In, a, in the case of a flower, a crystal, precious stone, or bird, however, when someone with little or no presence can occasionally sense that there is more there than the mere physical existence of that form, without knowing that this is the reason why he or she is drawn toward it, feels an affinity with it because of its ethereal nature. Its form obscures the indwelling spirit to a lesser degree than is the case with other life forms. The exception of this are all newborn life forms, babies, puppies, kittens, lambs, and so on. They are fragile, delicate, and not yet firmly established in materiality. An innocence, a sweetness, and beauty that are not of this world still shine through them. They delight even relatively insensitive humans. So when you're alert and contemplate a flower, crystal, or bird without naming it mentally, it becomes a window, it becomes a window for you into the formless. There is an inner opening, however slight, into the realm of spirit. This is why these three enlightened life forms have played such an important part in the evolution of human consciousness since ancient times. Why, for example, the jewel in the lotus flower is a central symbol of Buddhism, and a white bird, the dove, signifies the Holy Spirit in Christianity. They have been preparing the ground for a more profound shift in planetary consciousness that is destined to take place in the human species. This is the spiritual awakening that we are beginning to witness now. Deepa, would you like to continue the purpose of this book? I think yours was
Yeah.
the next name. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Uh, I didn't hear properly. Whose name was called out?
No,
It
no,
was
she asked if
yours.
you want to read it since your name is the next one.
Yeah, it's me. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, go on.
Okay. I'm starting. The purpose of this book is humanity ready for a transformation of consciousness or inner flowering so radical and profound that compared to it, the flowering of plants, no matter how beautiful, is only a pale reflection? Can human beings lose the density of their conditioned mind structures and become like crystals or precious stones, so to speak, transparent to the light of consciousness? Can they defy the gravitational pull of materialism and materiality and rise above identification with form that keeps the ego in place and condemns them to imprisonment within their own personality? The possibility of such transformation has been the central message of the great wisdom teachings of humankind. The messengers, Buddha, Jesus, and others, not all of them known, were humanity's early flowers. They were precursors, rare and precious beings. A widespread flowering was not yet possible, was not yet possible at that time, and their message became largely misunderstood and often greatly distorted. It certainly did not transform human behavior except in a small minority of people. Is humanity more ready now than at the time of those early teachers? Why should this be so? What can you do, if anything, to bring about or accelerate this inner shift? What is it that characterizes the old egoic state of consciousness? And by what signs is the new emerging consciousness recognized? These and other essential questions will be addressed in this book. More important, this book itself is a transformational device that has come out of the arising new consciousness. The ideas and concepts presented here may be important, but they are secondary. They are no more than signposts pointing towards awakening. As you read, a shift takes place within you. This book's main purpose is not to add new information or beliefs to your mind or to try to convince you of anything, but to bring about a shift in consciousness. That is to say, to awaken. In that sense, this book is not interesting. Interesting means you can keep your distance, play around with ideas and concepts in your mind, agree or disagree. This book is about you. It will change your state of consciousness or it will be meaningless. It can only awaken those who are ready. Not everyone is ready yet, but many are. And with each person who awakens, the momentum in the collective consciousness grows and it becomes easier for others. If you don't know what awakening is, read on. Only by awakening can you know the true meaning of that word. A glimpse is enough to initiate the awakening process, which is irreversible. For some, that glimpse will come while reading this book. For many others who may not even have realized it, the process has already begun. This book will help them recognize it. For some, it may have begun through loss or suffering. For others, through coming into contact with a spiritual teacher or teachings, through reading The Power of Now, or some other spiritually alive and therefore transformational book, or any combination of the above. If the awakening process has begun in you, the reading of this book will accelerate and intensify it. And an essential part of the awakening is the recognition of the unawakened you, the ego as it thinks, speaks, and acts, as well as the recognition of the collectively conditioned mental process that perpetuate the unawakened state. That is why this book shows the main aspects of the ego and how they operate in the individual as well as in the collective. This is important for two related reasons. The first is that unless you know the basic mechanics behind the workings of the ego, you won't recognize it and it will trick you into identifying with it again and again. This means it takes you over, an imposter pretending to be you. The second reason is that the act of recognizing itself is one of the ways in which awakening happens. When you recognize the unconsciousness in you, that which makes the recognition possible is the arising consciousness, is awakening. You cannot fight against the ego and win, just as you cannot fight against darkness. The light of consciousness is all that is necessary. You are that light. Yeah. Would anyone else want to take over? Has anyone put that?
Yeah, we have two names, Rajesh and Sunita. Yeah, Sunita, you can start if you want.
Yeah, our inherited dysfunction. If we look more deeply into humanity's ancient religions and spiritual traditions, we will find that underneath the many surface differences, there are two core insights that most of them agree on. The words they use to describe those insights differ, yet they all point to a twofold fundamental truth. The first part of this truth is the realization that the normal state of mind of most human beings contains a strong element of what we might call dysfunction or even madness. Certain teachings at the heart of Hinduism perhaps come closest to seeing this dysfunction as a form of collective mental illness. They call it Maya, the veil of delusion. Ramana Maharishi one of the greatest Indian sages, bluntly states, the mind is Maya. Buddhism uses different terms. According to the Buddha, the human mind in its normal state generates dukkha, which can be translated as suffering, unsatisfactoriness, or just plain misery. He sees it as a characteristic of the human condition. Wherever you go, whatever you do, says the Buddha, you will encounter the thing, and it will manifest in every situation sooner or later. According to Christian teachings, the normal collective state of humanity is one of original sin. Sin is the word that has been greatly misunderstood and misinterpreted. Literally translated from the ancient Greek in which the New Testament was written, to sin means to miss the mark, as an archer who misses the target. So to sin means to miss the point of human existence. It means to live unskillfully, blindly, and thus to suffer and cause suffering. Again, the term, stripped of its cultural baggage and misinterpretations, points to dysfunction inherent in the human condition. The achievements of humanity are impressive, undeniable. We have created sublime work of music, literature, painting, architecture, and sculpture. More recently, science and technology have brought about radical changes in the way we live and have enabled us to do and create things that would have been considered miraculous even 200 years ago. No doubt, the human mind is highly intelligent, yet its very intelligence is tainted by madness. Science and technology have magnified the destructive impact that the dysfunction of the human mind has upon the planet, other life forms, and upon humans themselves. That is why the history of the 20th century is where that dysfunction, that collective insanity, can be most clearly recognized. A further factor is that this dysfunction is actually intensifying and accelerating. The First World War broke out in 1918. It was motivated by fear, greed, and the desire for power, have been forming against throughout the
The
years.
voice has gone low, Sunita.
Okay.
Uh, so can
Now,
be a little louder, and sometimes it's breaking also. So just use the network. Yeah.
okay. I'll just read again. If it persists, then
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
someone
Yeah.
else will take it. The First World War broke out in 1914. Destructive and cruel wars, motivated by fear, greed, and the desire for power, had been common occurrences throughout human history, as had slavery, torture, and widespread violence inflicted for religious and ideological reasons. Humans suffered more at the hands of each other than through natural disasters. By the year 1914, however, the highly intelligent human mind had invented not only the internal combustion engine, but also bombs, machine guns, submarines, flamethrowers, and poison gas. Intelligence in the service of madness. In the static French warfare in France and Belgium, millions of men perished to gain a few miles of map. When the war was over in 1918, the survivors looked in horror and incomprehension upon the devastation left behind tens million human beings killed and many more maimed or disfigured. Never before had human madness been so destructive in its effect so clearly visible. Little did they know that this was only the beginning. By the end of the century, the number of people who died a violent death at the hand of their fellow humans would rise to more than 100 million. They died not only through wars between nations, but also through mass exterminations and genocide, such as the murder of 20 million class enemies, spies, and traitors in the Soviet Union under Stalin, or the unspeakable horrors of the Holocaust in Nazi Germany. They also died in countless small internal conflicts such as the Spanish Civil War or during the Khmer Rouge regime in Cambodia, where a quarter of the country's population was murdered. We only need to watch the daily news on television to realize that the madness has not abated. This is continuing into the 21st century. Another aspect of the collective dysfunction, the human mind, is the unprecedented violence that humans are inflicted on other life forms and the planet itself. The destruction of oxygen producing forests and other plant and animal life, ill treatment of animals in factory farms, and poisoning of rivers, ocean, and the air. Driven by greed, ignorant of their contentedness to the whole, humans persist in behavior that, if continued unchecked, can only result in their own destruction. The collective manifestations of the insanity that lies at the heart of the human condition constitute the greater part of human history. It is to a large extent a history of madness. If the history of humanity were the clinical case history of a single human being, the diagnosis would have to be chronic paranoid delusion, a pathological propensity to commit murder, and acts of extreme violence and cruelty against his perceived enemies, his own unconsciousness projected out, criminally insane with a few brief lucid intervals. Fear, greed, and the desire for power are the psychological motivating forces not only behind warfare and violence between nations, tribes, religions, and ideologies, but also the cause of incessant conflict in personal relationships. They bring about a distortion in your perception of other people and yourself. Through them, you misinterpret every situation, leading to a misguided action designed to rid you of fear and satisfy your need for more, a bottomless hole that can never be filled. It is important to realize, however, that fear, greed, and the desire for power are not the dysfunction that we are speaking of, but are themselves created by the dysfunction, which is a deep seated collective delusion that lies within the mind of each human being. A number of spiritual teachings tell us to let go of fear and desire, but those spiritual practices are usually unsuccessful. They haven't gone to the root of the dysfunction. Fear, greed, and desire for power are not the ultimate casual factors. Trying to become a good or better human being sounds like a commendable and high minded thing to do. Yet, it is an endeavor you cannot ultimately succeed in unless there is a shift in consciousness. This is because it is still part of the same dysfunction, a more subtle and rarefied form of self enhancement, of desire for more, and a strengthening of one's conceptual identity, one's self image. You do not become good by trying to be good. but by finding the goodness that is already within you and allowing that goodness to emerge. But it can only emerge if something fundamental changes in your state of consciousness. The history of communism, originally inspired by noble ideals, clearly illustrates what happens when people attempt to change external reality, create a new earth, without prior change in their inner reality, their state of consciousness. They make plans without taking into account the blueprint for the dysfunction that every human being carries within the ego. Would anyone else want to take it up?
Yeah, we have Rajesh and Pranavi's name. Yeah, we can go on like for another 2, 3 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever the topic allows. Just give me a minute. I'll scroll through first to check how much is left. Uh, I think it is a few more pages. Okay, yeah, we can finish the chapter and then stop over there. Yeah, Rajesh, you want to take up, and then you can allow Pranavi also to read after you.
Yeah, I can start, but can we complete in next 2 minutes or what it is?
No, no, 3, 4. It might take another 5 minutes, but let's
Yeah,
finish the
good
chapter.
morning, Mansi. I mean, the other people can continue because right now there is a shift in some. I have got some work to do. So, yeah.
Okay. Okay, then Suman has written a name, Rajesh. So after you, maybe Suman can finish the chapter. You just read some
Okay,
parts
for
and
two, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. The arising new consciousness. Most ancient religions and spiritual traditions share the common insight that our normal state of mind is marked by the fundamental effect. However, out of this insight into the nature of the human condition, we may call it the bad news. Arises is second insight. The good news of the possibility of a radical transformation of human consciousness. In Hindu teaching, and sometimes in Buddhism also, this transformation is called enlightenment. In the teaching of Jesus, it is salvation, and in Buddhism, it is the end of suffering. Liberation and awakening are other terms used to describe this transformation. Liberation and awakening are other terms used to describe this transformation. The greatest achievement of humanity is not its works of art, science, or technology, but the recognition of its own dysfunction, its own madness. In the distant past, this recognition already came to a few individuals. A man called Gautama Siddhartha, who lived 2600 years ago in India, was perhaps the first who saw it with absolute clarity. Later, the little Buddha was conferred upon him. Buddha means the awakened one. At about the same time, another of humanity's early awakened teachers emerged in China. His name was Lao Tzu. He left a record of his teaching in the form of one of the most profound spiritual books ever written, the Tao Te Ching. To recognize one's own insanity is, of course, the arising of sanity, the beginning of healing and transcendence. A new dimension of consciousness had begun to emerge on the planet, a first tentative flowering. Those rare individuals then spoke to their contemporaries. They spoke of sin, of suffering, of delusion. They said, look how you live. See what you're doing, the suffering you create. They then pointed to the possibility of awakening from the collective nightmare of normal human existence. They showed the way. Over to you, Suman or Sunita, who will want to take it up from here.
Yeah, yeah. Necessary part of human awakening. Sorry, the world was not yet ready for them, and yet they were a vital and necessary part of human awakening. Inevitably, they were mostly misunderstood by their contemporaries as well as by subsequent generations. Their teachings, although both simple and powerful, became distorted and misinterpreted. In some cases, even as they were recorded in writing by their disciples. Over the centuries, many things were added that had nothing to do with the original teachings, but were reflections of a fundamental misunderstanding. Some of the teachers were ridiculed, reviled, or killed. Others came to be worshipped as gods. Teachings that pointed the way beyond the dysfunction of the human mind, the way out of the collective insanity, were distorted and became themselves part of the insanity. And so religions, to a large extent, became divisive rather than unifying forces. Instead of bringing about an ending of violence and hatred through a realization of the fundamental oneness of all life, they brought more violence and hatred, more divisions between people as well as between different religions and even within the same religion. They became ideologies, belief systems people could identify with and so use them to enhance their false sense of self. Through them, they could make themselves right and others wrong, and thus define their identity through their enemies, the others, the non believers, or the wrong believers, who not infrequently they saw themselves justified in killing. Man made God in his own image. The eternal, the infinite, and unnameable was reduced to a mental idol that you had to believe in and worship as my God or our God. And yet, in spite of all the insane deeds perpetrated in the name of religion, the truth to which they point still shines at their core. It still shines, however dimly, through layers upon layers of distortion and misinterpretation. It is unlikely, however, that you will be able to perceive it there unless you have at least already had glimpse of that truth within yourself. Throughout history, there have always been rare individuals who experienced a shift in consciousness and so realized within themselves that toward which all religion point. To describe that non conceptual truth, they then used the conceptual framework of their own religions. Through some of those men and women, schools or movements developed within all major religions that represented not only a rediscovery, but in some cases, an intensification of the light of the original teaching. This is how Gnosticism and mysticism came into existence in early and medieval Christianity, Sufism in the Islamic religion, Hasidism and Kabbalah in Judaism, Advait Vedanta in Hinduism, Zen and Dzogchen in Buddhism. Most of these schools were iconoclastic. They did away with layers upon layers of deadening conceptualization and mental belief structures. And for this reason, most of them were viewed with suspicion and often hostility by the established religious hierarchies. Unlike mainstream religion, their teachings emphasized realization and inner transformation. It is through those schools it is through those historic schools or movements that the major religions regained the transformative power of the original teachings, although in most cases only a small minority of people had access to them. Their numbers were never large enough to have any significant impact on the deep collective unconsciousness of the majority. Over time, some of those schools themselves became too rigidly formalized or conceptualized to remain effective. Spirituality and religion. What is the role of the established religions in the arising of the new consciousness? Many people are already aware of the difference between spirituality and religion. They realize that having a belief system, a set of thoughts that you regard as the absolute truth, does not make you spiritual no matter what the nature of those beliefs is. In fact, the more you make your thoughts, beliefs into your identity, the more cut off you are from the spiritual dimension within yourself. Many religious people are stuck at that level. They equate truth with thought, and as they are completely identified with thought, their mind, they claim to be in sole possession of the truth in an unconscious attempt to protect their identity. They don't realize that their identity is being threatened by the spiritual dimension within themselves.
Voice inaudible.
Yes, Suman, you lost the
Now,
line or something?
Ji,
You have to read from the highlighted part. They don't realize. We couldn't hear you after that.
okay, they don't realize the limitations of thought unless you believe, think exactly as they do. You are wrong in their eyes, and in the in the not too distant past, they would have felt justified in killing you for that, and some still do even now. The new spirituality, the transformation of consciousness, is arising to a large extent outside of the structures of the existing institutionalized religions. They were always pockets of spirituality, even in the mind dominated religions, although the institutionalized hierarchies felt threatened by them and often tried to suppress them. A large scale opening of spirituality outside of the religious structures is an entirely new development. In the past, this would have been inconceivable, especially in the West, the most mind dominated of all cultures, where the Christian church had a virtual franchisee on spirituality. You could not just stand up and give a spiritual talk or publish a spiritual book unless you were sanctioned by the church. And if you were not, they would quickly silence you. But now, even within certain churches and religions, there are signs of change. It is heartwarming, and one is grateful for even the slightest signs of openness, such as Pope John Paul II visiting a mosque as well as a synagogue, partly as a result of the spiritual teachings that have arisen outside the established religions, but also due to an influx of the ancient Eastern wisdom teachings. A growing number of followers of traditional religions are able to let go of identification with form, dogma, and rigid belief systems and discover the original depth that is hidden within their own spiritual tradition at the same time as they discover the depth within themselves. They realize that how spiritual you are has nothing to do with what you believe, but everything to do with your state of consciousness. This, in turn, determines how you act in the world and interact with others. Those unable to look beyond form become even more deeply entrenched in their beliefs, that is to say, in their mind. We are witnessing not only an unprecedented influx of consciousness at this time, but also an entrenchment and intensification of the ego. Some religious institutions will be open to the new consciousness. Others will harden their doctrinal, yes, next page, positions and become part of all those other man made structures through which the collective ego will defend itself and fight back. Some churches sects, cults, or religious movements are basically collective egoic entities, as rigidly identified with their mental positions as the followers of any political ideology that is closed to any alternative interpretation of reality. But the ego is destined to dissolve, and all its ossified structures, whether they be religious or other institutions, corporations, or governments, will disintegrate from within, no matter how deeply entrenched they appear to be. The most rigid structures, the most impervious to change, will collapse first. This has already happened in the case of Soviet communism. How deeply entrenched, how solid and monolithic it appeared, and yet within a few years it disintegrated from within. No one foresaw this. All were taken by surprise. There are many more such surprises in store for us. The urgency of transformation, when faced with the
Just a minute, huh? Just a minute.
yeah,
Okay, there are two parts left. Okay. Uh, yeah, just go on, just finish it up. Yeah.
okay. The urgency of transformation, when faced with the radical crisis, when the old way of being in the world, of interacting with each other and with the realm of nature, doesn't work anymore, when survival is threatened by seemingly insurmountable problems, an individual life form or a species will either die or become extinct or rise above the limitations of its condition through an evolutionary leap. It is believed that the life forms on this planet first evolved in the sea when there were no animals yet to be found on land. The sea was already teeming with life. Then, at some point, one of the sea creatures must have started to venture onto dry land. It would perhaps crawl a few inches at first, then, exhausted by the enormous gravitational pull of the planet, it would return to the water where gravity is almost non existent and where it could live with much greater ease. And then it tried again and again and again, and much later would adapt to life on land, grow feet instead of fins, develop lungs instead of gills. It seems unlikely that a species would venture into such an alien environment and undergo an evolutionary transformation unless it was compelled to do so by some crisis situation. There may have been a large sea area that got cut off from the main ocean where the water gradually receded over thousands of years, forcing fish to leave their habitat and evolve, responding to a radical crisis that threatens our very survival. This is the humanity's challenge now. The dysfunction of the egoic human mind, recognized already more than 2,500 years ago by the ancient wisdom teachers and now magnified through science and technology, is for the first time threatening the survival of the planet. Until very recently, the transformation of human consciousness, also pointed to by the ancient teachers, was no more than a possibility, realized by a few rare individuals here and there, irrespective of cultures or religious background. A widespread flowering of human consciousness did not happen because it was not yet imperative. A significant portion of the Earth's population will soon recognize, if they have not already done so, that humanity is now faced with a stark choice: evolve or die. A still relatively small but rapidly growing percentage of humanity is already experiencing within themselves the breakup of the old egoic mind patterns and the emergence of a new dimension of consciousness. What is arising now is not a belief system, a new religion, spiritual ideology, or mythology. We are coming to the end not only of mythologies but also of the ideologies and belief systems. The change goes deeper. than the content of your mind, deeper than your thoughts. In fact, at the heart of the new consciousness is the transcendence of thought, the newfound ability of rising above thought, of realizing a dimension within yourself that is infinitely more vast than thought. You then no longer derive your identity, your sense of who you are, from the incessant stream of thinking that in the old consciousness you take to be yourself. What a liberation to realize that the voice in my head is not who I am. Who am I then? The one who sees that. The awareness that is prior to thought, the space in which the thought or the emotion or sense perception happens. Ego is no more than this identification with form, which primarily means thought forms. If evil has any reality, and it has a relative, not an absolute reality, this is also its definition complete identification with form, physical forms, thought forms, emotional forms. This results in a total unawareness of my connectedness with the whole, my intrinsic oneness with every other, as well as with the source. This forgetfulness is original sin, suffering, delusion. When this delusion of utter separateness underlies and governs whatever I think, say, and do, what kind of world do I create? To find the answer to this, observe how humans relate to each other. Read a history book or watch the news on television tonight. If the structures of the human mind remain unchanged, we will always end up recreating fundamentally the same world, the same evils, the same dysfunction. A New Heaven and a New Earth. The inspiration for the title of this book came from a Bible prophecy that seems more applicable now than at any other time in human history. It occurs in both the Old and the New Testament and speaks of the collapse of the existing world order and the arising of a new heaven and a new earth. We need to understand here that heaven is not a location but refers to the inner realm of consciousness. This is the historic meaning of the word, and this is also its meanings in the teachings of Jesus. Earth, on the other hand, is the outer manifestation in form, which is always a reflection of the inner. Collective human consciousness and life on our planet are intrinsically connected. A new heaven is the emergence of a transformed state of human consciousness, and a new earth is its reflection in the physical realm. Since human life and human consciousness are intrinsically one with the life of the planet, as the old consciousness dissolves, there are bound to be synchronistic geographic and climatic natural upheavals in many parts of the planet, some of which we are already witnessing now. Yeah, it's complete.
Okay, wow. The chapter is over. Sorry, it took a little longer, but I did not. I felt maybe we should complete it for better understanding. So, yeah, we might go a little differently for this book because this is so deep, and we will open up for a discussion. Maybe we'll keep it short for this book, maybe 10 minutes, 5, 10 minutes, and everyone make sure that you take little time, like 1 minute or so for speaking, and please do share your thoughts. And yes, let's stick to the topics that we read because otherwise there are high chances of we derailing into something else because this is such a deep concept even for everyone to grasp and assimilate as of now, right? So yeah, feel free to share, whoever wants to share anything that struck you today, or any reflections on what we read. It was deep, and I can assure you that book going forward is will take you more inward. So I have heard the podcast, so I'm a little aware of it. So the book talks a lot about ego, pain, and things like that in much deeper level, helping us introspect. So this is just like a ground building of that. So from today's chapter, it's more like he's just bringing us to the consciousness of the evolution and change that happens, and slowly he will take us to our inner evolution. So you will be connecting better and better as we go forward, even if today was a little different. So yeah, please feel free to share whatever you would like to. I hope you're connecting with the book. You're able to connect with it. You're liking it. Just share your thoughts, whatever comes up. And anyone who wants to leave, feel free to share first. Yeah, Viren, yeah, you want to go first?
Yeah, audible clear.
No, no, not. You're very low. Can you talk a little louder?
Now
Hello.
is it okay? Hello.
Yeah, better than before. Yeah, share.
Yeah, so my series, like the phases in the first chapter, the author has presented. Like first, they have mentioned flower as a symbol of awakening, right? So it's one type of metaphor he has used. Like it's a symbol of higher consciousness emerging. So just like flowers, we have also the potential to grow beyond and survival. Then next is he has mentioned about the role of ego. So we generally have ego-based consciousness. So different example they have said, right? So how ego can lead to conflict, suffering, and separation from others and from nature. So the role of ego he has mentioned, and then they focused on the spirituality, like how spirituality and psychologically we are evolving, right? So it's all about awakening from the unconscious thought patterns. So this is what the author has mentioned. So this will be the next step in human evolution. Right. So and one point that he has mentioned to have a shift, urgent, right? So we are at a critical point. So either we need to awaken our consciousness, right? Or we will have a suffering, more destruction. And this shift is he has not mentioned to have a like uh, he has mentioned like the shift is necessary for survival of our planet, and this is how he has conceptualized the new earth and new heaven. So that's it from my side. Thank you.
Yes, yes, yeah. Thank you for summing it up nicely. So yeah, anyone else wants to add anything? Any insights? Any takeaways? Anything that struck you? Just try to keep it short because we are out of time also, and so that for this whole book we emphasize more on reflecting uh, and less discussing, like because otherwise it dilates and derails our understanding to certain extent sometimes. So yeah, please do share. Please feel free and open up.
So for me, what struck was the fact that uh, you go through the process of journey of transformation only when you are forced to take that step. So once you are down low, once you have fallen down to the last level, then only you are induced to rise up upon. So that is what stuck to me in the whole thing, and obviously, um, uh, what the significance of finding the relevance and uh, of a flower, the relevance in the flower, and uh, in just being that. So that was the two things that stuck for me.
Yeah, very well pointed. Very beautiful point. Thank you for highlighting that for us, Sunita. So yeah, even for me, that one line which was there, it's not about finding the goodness. It's about bringing the goodness within you out. So that one point and that evolution where he mentioned from maybe one animal just crawled on earth from water, and that's how the fins were developed into maybe feet and things like that. Like that's how we must have evolved. So we never think in this direction. So yeah, and all of the religious evolution and all that he's talking about. So he's covering a lot of things in this chapter today. But yeah, for me, all these were like highlighting. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So yeah, anyone else?
So what was that again? Sorry to ask, Sunita. Can you say that? I missed that.
You want to repeat, Sunita? And Maniji, we are short on time, so we will just go a little fast today, and we'll keep it short.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyone else? Yeah. Uh, Sunita, you want to repeat it like in short for him? I think she's left. So basically, she just shared that. Actually, you can listen to the recording, Maniji. That will help you help us better, because that will give you the first hand of what she shared. So yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else? Yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah,
Yeah,
my
I
take.
just
Yeah,
want to.
yeah.
Okay,
Please
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Please go ahead.
Uh,
Yeah.
Just my takeaway from this book is that this is about connecting to consciousness. That heaven is not a location. Actually, it is the inner realm of consciousness that we have to be aware of. And this life on planet and is intrinsically connected with the consciousness, with the collective human consciousness. Yeah, that's it. Please go ahead, Deepaji.
Yeah, I just want to read some lines. What is
Yeah. Yeah.
arising now is not a very new belief system, a new religion, spiritual ideology, or mythology. We are coming to the end not only of mythologies, but also of ideologies and belief systems. The change goes deeper than the content of your mind, deeper than your thoughts. In fact, at the heart of the very conscious new consciousness is the transcendence of thought, the new found ability of rising above thought, of realizing dimensions within yourself that is infinitely more vast than thought. So this lines made a deep impact. I want to meditate on it. And he primarily says what my takeaway is that uh, different religion, different spiritual leaders over ages from different parts of our world have come up with various philosophies, ideologies. But they have the same thread, the same thought process. Some have been rejected, accepted, or they have been combined together. So now we are at that junction where a new ideology, new face is going to emerge. And as everyone has been saying, this is very profound, very deep, and very interesting. But again, the word interesting also he has redefined. So I want to meditate on whatever he's talking about here. Thank you.
Sorry, I was talking with mute. So thank you for sharing that, Deepa. And yes, in fact, I think we all should meditate on what we're reading from this book, because it's actually very deep. And I think it's not one time is not enough for us to understand what the author really wants to say, because our beliefs and everything are definitely bound to come in the way of our understanding. So we need to reflect deeper. And yes, thank you so much for sharing that, Suman, Deepa, both of you. Wonderful pointers. And yes, what I would suggest, if we all could just do this, like just the way Deepa read out for us, whatever she connected better, if we can just highlight that part which resonated, or maybe even point out a few lines from the book that connected more with us, and just share it in the group throughout the day, that will be better, like, because we can actually go through it again, and then reflect a little deeper on it, and maybe have our own takeaways from that exercise, kind of a thing. So let's do that as a practice for this book. Yeah. Anyone else wants to add something more?
Yeah. Uh, See, my take on that is that, a new life, and the author narrated different things. My takeaway is that, yesterday also I was reading something very similar on that. So the beauty of the life lies in your mindfulness. Let's say we are talking, we are discussing something right now, or I'm having my breakfast, or whatever I'm doing. So I have to be fully present in that, that present moment. Like, my focus has to be just on that moment, like what I'm doing, what I'm eating, what I'm reading, what I'm thinking, right? So when we are is all about mindfulness, like my mind and my heart should be fully focus on that moment. Like, I'm enjoying every bit of my breakfast, yes, I'm, and uh, any taste out of that, and the flavor, and so many things. So basically, we have to use all our senses in that moment to enjoy that food, and then only that's the best way we can nourish our body and our mind and our heart. So that echoes so much to me. That insight that I wanted to share with you, that life strength lies in the present moment, our mindfulness. Like, we should be fully involved in that moment doing that particular work,
Yeah.
and not thinking
Manoj,
anything outside.
can I interrupt you? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
can
go
I?
ahead.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So I
sure.
just this is great, and obviously yes, we do agree on that. But the author was not talking about any present moment today. He was talking about the higher collective consciousness and things like that. So do you want to connect it, what you're saying, with that? Because we would be wanting to reflect on what we read just now more than the concepts we are already aware of, like
Okay,
throughout
then.
this book, in fact. So
Yeah, yeah.
if you can just highlight anything from the book that we read today, and then take us through any connection elsewhere, that would be even helpful for every one of us to connect with it better from what we read, because we are trying to go deeper into the book
Yeah, I got
rather
your
than
point.
because normally what happens, we are reading so many things, we are learning so many things, all of us together, so it's natural that we connect with other things that we are reading simultaneously, but then sometimes what happens, we miss out on the essence of what we are reading, and go deeper, not going deeper into what we read just right now. So that is what the purpose, because this particular book is very very deep,
Yeah,
and I'm sure, like, even if we read it, whoever is reading it for the first time, we will not be able to extract 100% out of it, because it's a very very deep book. So that's why we need to be little more reflective around it. So anything from the book and the chapter that we read today that you would want to connect with and
yeah. I'll
highlight
do
a
that
point?
tomorrow, because actually I was not reading today. I was busy with something else. So I'll do it. I'll share my insight on this today's reading tomorrow. Yeah, not
Yeah, and
now.
if you can just highlight the parts that you're talking about, and highlight which lines you are resonating with, and then if you can share, that will even help everyone to connect.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
sure. I'll do that tomorrow. Yeah.
yeah, sure, sure. Anytime. Yeah. Thank you, thank you. Anyone else wants to add something, or we can just close for today? Yeah,
Just
Shilpa.
Mansi, I
Yeah, yeah.
just wanted to thank you for choosing this book. I've gone through this 5 times already, and I was with the opera and Eckhart Tolle first time when they started in 2008, and it is mind blowing. So I'm so glad that through you I'm getting an opportunity to do this all over again. And as you said, it's very deep. And even if it's the fifth time, it doesn't make a difference. There's still so much to uncover. And what I like about Eckhart Tolle is that he simplifies our learning from our Eastern traditions. I'm saying Eastern because I don't only mean Indian, but also Chinese and the rest of the Eastern traditions. So he simplifies them, and it's easy to digest. and then put into practice. So looking forward to it, and
So you have
thank
read
you.
this book 4 times already?
Yes,
Like, am I getting it right?
yes,
Oh wow. I This is my first time.
and I've
So
done
I
this course also with
normally,
Eckhart Tolle.
actually, people like there were many people few of them in fact recommended that this book is not I don't know if it will be a good read for a group reading, because this is more of a book where we need to read slowly and reflect and things like that. But then I thought, let's give it a try. So that's why we are approaching a little differently, little slowly, being more conscious, so that at least we derive a little more out of it than normally how we go about other books. So let's see. I hope it helps. And we are also going to share the podcast series that is already there by Oprah and Eckhart. So since we finished one chapter today, I will share the first episode from that podcast, and so that will help us deepen the understanding at least to some extent, I feel. So let's see. Even I'm not sure like how much I'm going to get out of it in the first reading itself, but let's see, hoping for the best. Looking forward.
I just say no expectations, just learning. Just become a
Yeah, yeah,
sponge, absorb as much as you. So it will come, and then maybe the second read you will learn something else. That's it. So don't. I would rather no expectations, just learning, open to learning. That's it.
yeah, true. Yeah, yeah, that's a great approach. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So, yeah, thank you everyone. I think we are all done. Anyone wants to share something, or we can just quickly leave then? I think
Hey, Mansi, I just had a question.
yeah, yeah,
How
please,
much
please.
did how
We
much did we
completed
cover?
first chapter. We completed first chapter, Richa, and it is all
Okay.
about evolution and all, and it's quite deep actually. And this chapter is an overview. He's just taking building the ground, from what I understand, and it will take us deeper and deeper eventually through our different things that connect with us personally. Because I am a little aware through the podcast that I've heard before, which I will be sharing with everyone. And what we're going to do with this book is, since we have a podcast series by Oprah and Eckhart, who share their insights and go deeper into the concepts of the chapter, I will be sharing that after completion of every chapter, each episode that is relevant to the chapter one by one. So I would insist go through that too, so it will help us understand better about the book and the concept that is explained in the book. So
Yeah,
yeah,
sounds good. I remember you mentioning about this podcast like months before as well, like, or maybe even
yeah,
years ago, like when you were going through it, and you had shared, I think, a couple of links back then also. And I think I had started going through, I think, the first chapter. I
okay.
have this book in my collection for years, but I haven't started it. But I think I had started the podcast series. So this is a good reminder, and I'm glad,
And
just
this
like
is
others
it
were
is now.
mentioning.
Now is the
Yeah,
time for you, because even I think I read, I started with first chapter or something sometime back after reading the podcast, but somehow I couldn't go further. So now with the group,
yeah.
we'll be able to finish for sure, and then let's see how
Yeah,
much
and
we
I think with the group energies, it will be good. And I am glad that we picked the book. And I know that even if some people had reservation about it not being the right kind of book, maybe, but I also feel that we have matured as a group, right? And we can take it up as a challenge and try to see what we can achieve with this. And I think the podcast series that you mentioned will help enable us, to do better, I think. All right, that's all I had. You are on mute, Mansi, so I'm not sure if you're speaking.
Oh yeah, I was speaking. Sorry. So
Oh,
yeah, yeah,
okay.
that's what I was saying. Yes, I also thought that let's give it a try, even if we don't derive fully. Like at least we'll get some essence or some gist out of whatever we are learning, right? So that will help, and we can always go back
Yeah.
again for a better understanding. So yeah, let's. I thought
Yes,
let's.
and I definitely needed motivation to get back to this book because I've been
No, actually,
reading
you
like,
know what, Richa, we really missed you for the last book also. Look, that was also a wonderful read, The Power of Heart. And Shilpa took us through meditations at the end of every chapter.
oh
So
wow,
we really missed you
nice.
during that. But
It's
yeah,
okay. I'll try to
on
go
the
through some
recordings.
of the recordings if they are
Yeah,
available for the
yeah, they are there. They are there, and do go through. I would insist because that is again a very beautiful book, and we enjoyed
power
reading it.
of the power
The
of
Power of the Heart.
power of the heart. Okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll
it's
go
there.
through that. Yeah, and yeah, it's just that I think I needed that this time to recover my recovery to,
Yeah,
and
no
because it
problem.
has been a month. So yeah,
Are you better now?
yes. I'm better off. I'm still not able to walk properly. Like I can walk, but I don't put too much stress because the wound is very deep and it's on my around my left knee. So I can't stretch my leg completely. So it's taking a little bit of recovery time because uh, internally it's healing. On the surface, it seems like it has healed, but internally, I think it's taking some
No, no,
time.
no. It
So I
will
just have
take
to be
some
patient.
time. Yeah, 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 no problem.
Yes.
And to join us, so we will also, and also you will also benefit now out of this reading and distraction that happens in a good way.
Yes, and yeah, and I think I was on too many medicines for 2 weeks. I was on antibiotics, so that just like completely made me very like completely threw off my schedule. But I'm slowly getting back to my routine, and I think this week I'm doing a lot better. So yeah, and I'll continue doing better. So yeah, I'm hoping to be an active participant once again.
Yeah, yeah, I'm glad you're back. We missed you.
Yes.
So,
All right. I'll let you go. It's like close to 1.5 hours, right? Since you are logged on. So have a great day. Make it a great day. Wishing you all a happy, blessed day.
yeah, same to you. Good night and have a great day tomorrow. Bye bye. Take care.
Thank you.